I'm Dr. Lora Shahine. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today, we're going to talk about foods that harm your fertility. I'm Dr. Lora Shahine. I'm a reproductive endocrinologist helping people build families for over 15 years. And I'm answering questions every day, like what food should I avoid if I want to be fertile? These are great questions. We know the healthier we are, the more focused our body is on reproduction. And in general, we know that nutrition is a huge part of health. I have two other videos I encourage you to watch on diet and fertility, as well as foods to choose to improve your fertility here on YouTube. Check out those videos. They're so helpful. And these video ideas came from you and this community. So comment here in this video to tell me what else you want to learn about and hear about, because I'm here to educate and I love talking about what you want to learn about. So what foods should we avoid if we want to be fertile? There's four big groups to talk about. In general, fast food or highly processed foods, foods with high glycemic index or really high glycemic carbohydrates. Number three, too much animal protein. And number four, trans fats. So there are certain foods in these food groups to avoid, but it's really kind of a big picture. And listen, if you follow me here on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, all of my education, I am a real proponent of finding balance and modifying everything. I do not think fertility is black and white. I do not think that we can live our life completely black and white. So every once in a while, enjoying these bad foods, I actually don't like calling food good or bad, but enjoying foods that may not be ideal is just a part of enjoying life. It's just that you want to, the majority of the time, choose foods that are going to be healthy for you, because the healthier you are, the more fertile you'll be. So fast food. Fast food is highly processed. We know it's got lots of sodium, lots of fat, makes it taste great, but it is not good for us. We kind of know that. There are studies that show this too. A study published in Australia in 2018 was looking at over 5,000 women who were recording their diet while they're trying to conceive. And women who had a diet high in fast food took longer to conceive. If women had 4 or more meals that were considered fast food per week, they had a 41% higher chance of being infertile. So what about male factor fertility? Highly processed food is associated with poor sperm parameters. One study showed this in 2015. There's a lot of theories as to why fast food is associated with lower fertility rates in both men and women. Just the processing of food sometimes is removing a lot of the nutrients. A lot of the food is high in sodium, high in sugar content, makes it taste really good, but that's throwing off our insulin levels and our metabolism. The packaging of fast food is often full of endocrine disruptors, BPA, phthalates. I've got some great videos here on YouTube. I educate a lot on endocrine disruptors and their impact on fertility. If you are getting takeout or you're having fast food just every once in a while, if you're able to try to get it out of the packaging as soon as possible so that food is not sitting there and the hot food kind of absorbing the endocrine disruptors that are in the packaging. So the least amount of exposure means that you're going to get exposed to it the least too. Another group of foods to think about limiting while you're trying to optimize your fertility are foods with high glycemic index. These are foods, typically carbohydrates with refined sugars, very refined grains, that cause a spike in our blood sugar when we have them, a spike in our insulin levels. It's a little bit difficult for our body to recover from quickly. Some foods with high glycemic index can be white rice, white bread, instant oatmeal. Corn actually has a high glycemic index. Some potatoes. You don't necessarily have to cut out carbs completely, but instead choose brown rice or whole grain breads, steel cut oats. Think about spinach or leafy vegetables as opposed to corn as a side for your dinner. There's a great resource teaching you a little bit more about these foods and some different options at Harvard Health. So choosing foods that have lower spikes in our blood sugar just is easier for our body to process and better for our overall health. So every once in a while, these things are great to enjoy, but when you have choices, opt for carbohydrates with lower glycemic index. Third group is animal protein. A higher intake of animal protein has been associated with lower fertility rates, looking in multiple different studies. Again, the Nurses' Health Study looking at fertility and types of food, people who ate a lot of meat, specifically red meat, had a longer time to conception, more infertility. One specific value from this study that's interesting is that the people that had at least 5% of their total protein from vegetable protein, as opposed to animal protein, had a 50% lower risk of ovulatory dysfunction, meaning that if you have more vegetable sources for your protein, you have a higher chance of ovulating regularly, having regular menstrual cycles, which gives you more opportunity to get pregnant if you're trying to conceive. A study from 2014 showed specifically that men have poor sperm parameters if their diet is heavy in red meat. Another study showed that women who eat a high percentage of red meat in their diet have a stronger risk of endometriosis. Endometriosis is an inflammatory condition that is associated with painful periods, pain with intercourse, and infertility. We still have a lot to learn about endometriosis. The only way that you can really diagnose it is if you do a laparoscopy and you can see the lesions and the inflammation in the pelvis and throughout the abdomen, but it can be associated with infertility. And there are some interesting studies looking at lifestyle, including diet and nutrition, and linkages to why some people get endometriosis and some people don't. And I'm just fascinated by that study that showed that a diet high in red meat was associated with a higher risk of endometriosis. Non-animal sources of proteins can be vegetables, lentils, nuts, and beans. There are many theories as to why diets high in animal protein, specifically red meat, can impact your fertility. Lots of different theories. How is the meat being processed? What kind of hormones or antibiotics are being given to the meat as it's being raised. Also, in the packaging and processing of meat, there could be a lot of exposure to some of these endocrine disruptors. Some of the food packaging surrounding the meat has a lot of plastics and BPAs and phthalates. So it's not exactly clear cut. And, I don't want to take red meat away from everyone's diet. It can be so delicious sometimes, but just thinking about different choices and trying to kind of optimize your nutrition if you're thinking about trying to optimize fertility. Another big group to think about are trans fats. Trans fats are formed when manufacturers use a process called hydrogenation in order to turn liquid fats into solid fats. This process increases the shelf life of food and stabilizes a lot of the flavor in some of the highly processed food that we love to eat from the grocery store. Things like margarine, cookies, some crackers, candies, salad dressing, fried food, granola bars, cereals. So many foods can have trans fats in them. Some foods even are marketing that they're healthy and they're wonderful for you. You have to read the labels because they might have trans fats. In one study, again, back to the nurses study, this particular one was published in 2007. A higher diet in trans fats was associated with ovulatory dysfunction and a longer time to conceive. An increased intake of trans fats has been associated with poor sperm parameters and male factor infertility. And again, endometriosis, it can be more associated in women that have a higher diet of trans fats. Fascinating studies. So I am here not to take away all the food that you enjoy, but to educate you on what the evidence is showing and help you make healthier choices so that you can improve your fertility. Let's recap. Number 1, less fast food. Number 2, carbohydrates with lower glycemic index. Number 3, get protein from more vegetable and plant sources than animal sources. And number 4, less trans fats. I hope you learned something from this video. Like it if you learned something, comment with questions that you have, subscribe to this channel, and stick around for more learning.